Let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that we may walk in his paths. The nation's Ninth of Av invites you to join us in the conversation of Christians and Jews walking together in fulfillment of God's covenant promises.
Good morning. This is Steve Work from the Nation's Ninth of Av, and I have a special guest with me, A.Y. Katsof, or Aaron. A.Y. has been a good friend for many, many years now. He's actually a major in the IDF. He is the founder and director of the Heart of Israel. And most of all, he is the father of 6 children and a wonderful wife, Rivka. And I just want to, we want to hear your story, A.Y. We want to hear about your life and what you're doing on the mountains of Samaria, and what is Hashem doing? How is your life going now? Tell us about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve, for having me on the show. First of all, just a major in the IDF and reserves. So, which means it's not my everyday job. It's about maybe 30 days a year, something like that. Okay. And about the amount of kids, so it depends who you ask. If you ask my wife, she would say 7 children. She kind of counts me in on one of the kids. But if you could share the screen that I'm sharing. As you can see, that's right here where I live. It's one of my daughters, and the background of my other 2 daughters, riding through our vineyards. We have vineyards here in the Shomron Mountains. And this is my family. Right here is our vineyards that we're riding through here. Now, what's special about these vineyards, you have to understand, this is all the mountains of Shomron, the mountains of Samaria. And if you read Jeremiah 31, it's talking about the Jews coming back to the mountains of Samaria and planting vineyards.
Yes.
And when we came back here to these mountains, after over 2,000 years of exile, we decided to plant vineyards in the mountains of Samaria.
So you planted these vineyards. You planted these vineyards. Yeah. This is something that you and your family and community did.
Yeah, me and my kids, tree after tree after tree. And people told us these trees are not going to succeed. It's not going to work. The mountain is too tough. And we said, Jeremiah 31 said, and it could have said they'll plant in Israel, they'll plant in Samaria, but Jeremiah specifies the mountains of Samaria.
Wow.
And we came back, and now all the people that said that it would never succeed, they're saying, you don't understand, because the bedrock is so tough, the roots have to work really hard to find moisture and in the rocks, and while it does that, it takes out all the minerals, and we get the top highest quality wine grape here in these mountains. And I think overall that's the story of the Jewish people here in Israel. It's not easy, it's tough, but from the working hard, that's how we get the sweetest fruit.
Wow.
And I actually wanted to share with you a little story that I went through a couple years ago.
Okay.
And, I'm here in the mountains of Samaria, in a little hilltop actually called Esh Kodesh. That's a picture right outside my home. And I heard about the Ethiopian Jews. And I read about in the prophets how God says he will rise a banner to the nations and collect the Jews from 4 corners of the world. And specifies the south by saying, I will tell to the north, let them go, into the south, do not hold them back. For I will bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the end of the earth. Wow. And I heard about the Ethiopian Jews, and I said that I will go and check it out for myself and see what's happening. So actually, when I went there to visit.
So you traveled down to Ethiopia.
I traveled down to Ethiopia, put on my cowboy hat, and went to check it out. And this is what I saw. This is a picture I took in the little Jewish community. Right over there, what she's doing, you can see she's crushing buna, which is their coffee bean.
Ooh.
And and I saw, the Ethiopian Jews there, and just kind of so you can kind of get an idea. If you see on the map, when you say Ethiopian Jews, you think right away about Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. Operation Moses started in the late 70s, the early, and the Jews left North Ethiopia, kind of what you see on the map, into Sudan. Into Sudan, they had the Red Cross camps, where there were all the Ethiopians, not just the Jews, actually mostly not Jews, running away from the civil war that was happening. They stayed in the Ethiopian camps. And at night, the Mossad agents would find them and drive them a 2-night drive right here to Port Sudan. And in Port Sudan, I'm sure you heard of the famous Port Sudan that the Mossad agents built a diving resort.
Yes.
And during the day, they would dive, but at night, they would take the Ethiopian Jews on Zodiac boats into a ship into the Red Sea, up into Sharm el-Sheikh, which was at the time Israel, and then into Israel. This was actually a picture of one of the trucks, the actual trucks that would drive them from the camps. This is the diving resort, and that's the family that ran the resort. You have to imagine all of a sudden you have a high-level diving resort. All the high politicians from Sudan would come and hang out over there.
Going to the resort.
Oh, yeah. And they would have like European level happenings happening at the resort. And while the high officials were sleeping at this resort, right around the corner, you had trucks of Ethiopian Jews being smuggled out into Israel.
That is amazing.
This is amazing. Actual picture of one of the ships. The person who's standing, that's Zimna. He's one of the Ethiopian Mossad agents that came back and helped these Ethiopian Jews that are on the ship come to Israel. And when he came with other Mossad agents from Israel, and the Ethiopian Jews saw them, and they said, "You can't be Jewish, you're white." They didn't know that there was such a thing as white Jews.
Oh, wow.
These are Ethiopian Jews already growing up in Israel.
So how many actually came out of Ethiopia and ended up in Israel? Any idea of the number?
Yeah, of course. So that's a great question, and that's where this story comes in. Because let's just talk right now in Israel today. You have about 100,000 Ethiopian Jews that came, plus another 50 that were born here, second generation. So that's about 150 altogether. But Operation Moses alone, about 16,000 arrived. The reception here on the hills of Binyamin is a little tough. Do you have me back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, we're back.
Yes, we're on Operation Moses. We're talking about how many of the Ethiopian Jews came home. I think you said 16,000. We're actually
Operation Moses, about 16,000, and about 5,000 died on the way. That's a huge number.
Wow. So this wasn't an easy trip. This was significant.
People walked for about a month, some of them without shoes, through Ethiopia into Sudan. Many people died on the way. And then in Sudan, in the camps, people waited for sometimes 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, some people 5 years, till they were able to be brought to Israel. A lot of people died waiting. A lot of people got into Sudanese prison and died. A lot of people were shot. And what's special about this story that I'm about to tell you, that there was 88 people went missing. And this story is about one of those 88. So you can see here on the picture, that's me and my friend Ezri. We're landing in Ethiopia. This is in the shul in Ethiopia, in the synagogue. You see how they're praying? Just how we pray here in Israel and in Jerusalem. That's the Ethiopian Jewish community.
Wow.
And so this is a list.
These communities go back thousands of years, don't they?
They say from the first temple. So, over about 2,500 years.
Wow. And remain faithful.
Yeah, the whole time they remained. They kept the Torah. They have a written Bible, handwritten Bible throughout the whole way. Um, Now, this is a picture that I took at the synagogue in Gondar. And I see this boy over here, and I see he looks very different from the other Ethiopians. This is in prayers. He looks a little bit more Sudanese. And I come up to him, and I speak to him, and he brings me to his mother. This is his mother. And she is one of the 88 people that went missing.
Oh, wow.
And I come up to her and I start talking to her. She speaks Amharic, Tigriit, and Arabic. So Amharic and Tigriit I don't know, but I'm able to speak to her in Arabic. But it's Sudanese Arabic, so it's very hard. And she starts telling me the story. And she says that when she was on the way from Ethiopia to Israel with her family, she ended up in Sudan, and she was caught, and she ended up in a Sudanese prison. She was about 14 years old.
Oh. Just a young girl.
Yep. And in the Sudanese prison, the head of the prison felt bad for her and decided to buy her out and marry her. Now, her brothers had no idea. They looked for her. They even came to the prison and checked the names, and her name was never checked in. So they looked her for many years, and for 30 years, they didn't know where she was. She basically disappeared.
30 years?
For 30 years, they thought that she was dead. So she brings me over to her hut, because I said, this is, a longer story that I need to hear. This is where she lives. I come in there. There's a lot of people fit in there. It's a one-room little mud hut.
Mm-hmm.
She's telling me this story while she's making coffee. That's her making coffee. And she tells me this story. She shows me a picture. This is her brother in Israel. Those are her other kids.
Uh-huh.
And what does she say? She says that for 30 years, she was married to the officer, this Dinka tribe officer, the head of the prison. And about 2 years ago, she sees on TV Israeli Ethiopians visiting Ethiopia. And she all of a sudden understood, my brothers must have made it to Israel. They must have made it. And she gathers all her things, and she travels to Ethiopia looking for these Israeli Ethiopians. And she couldn't find them because the TV show must have been taken a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells me how she goes back to the bus stop, and she gave up. She said, that's it. It's never happening. And she lies down on the bus stop, and she closes her eyes, and she starts talking to God and saying, God, I came back. I tried. If you gave up on me and if you don't want me, so take me away. I can't do this anymore. And as she's saying that, she hears Ethiopians speaking Hebrew. And she jumps up and she sees these Ethiopian Israelis. She begs them to bring them to Israel. And they say, listen, it's not like it was in the 80s. This is, it was already, I think it was 2015.
Wow.
But what they did is they took a smartphone, they showed her what it is, and said, listen, we're going to do a fast video of your picture, and we're going to send it on groups. She didn't know exactly what they were talking about. She didn't understand how a phone will do videos. But they did that, and now imagine her brother in that you can see in the picture, 30 years later, all of a sudden getting a WhatsApp message in a group saying, does anybody know this girl? She claims that her brothers are in Israel.
Wow.
And he opens the message and he sees his sister.
What an incredible story.
So he calls her and tells her, leave Sudan and go to Gondar, Ethiopia, to the Jewish community, and they're starting the bureaucracy of bringing her home. In the meantime, she shows me this picture. And this picture is what changed my life. She says, look, that's my oldest daughter, Fiat. She was born. Joel was that boy that I saw in the synagogue.
Okay, so to start over, so this was the oldest daughter, Fiat, that was, how old was she?
At the time, she was about 22.
Okay.
And that's exactly what you asked. That's what I asked. I said, okay, so like, how old is she? Where is she now? And as soon as I asked, where is she? So she got up and she walked out. She couldn't speak anymore. And I tried to get her to speak and she started crying. And I said, where's your daughter Fiat? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, what happened? When is the last time you saw her? And she said, about 10 years ago when she was 12. In the Dinka culture, remember, she was married to a Dinka man.
Right.
The Dinka culture till today, when a girl reaches about 12, 13 years old, the man who pays the most cows is able to marry her. And her daughter Piat and her second daughter Susie were married off. And Piat, which means good or well in the Dinka language, she was married off and into South Sudan. And over there, she was not treated well. She had a little baby. And her baby, Ayen. Ayen is named after the first cow that was paid for her because they missed the cow. So they named the baby after the cow that was paid for the mother. And Piat was not treated well. She takes her baby Ayen and she travels back to her mother. Her husband goes to her father, who was not living together with their mother anymore,
Right.
and asks and says, give me back my cows. And he said, I don't have them. But he gives him one cow. He takes the cow, he sells it. With that money, he travels and by force takes back Piat and the baby. And since then, Piat has not seen her mother. And basically cut off completely. She doesn't even know what her situation is. She says maybe she's not even alive. And I said, listen, in the Jewish people, we have a saying. We don't leave anyone behind. We don't leave anyone behind. And your daughter is like my sister. And I imagined if something, God forbid, would happen to one of my daughters, what I would do to help them and bring them back. And if I couldn't, so I would surely really hope that there would be somebody else out there that would be able to help them and bring them back.
Yes. So you decided to step into the gap, and you this became a passion for you.
Exactly. At that moment, I decided no matter what, I will do what has to be done to bring these girls. So I take Cho, that's the boy that I met in the show, in the synagogue, and I show him what Facebook is, and I said, start looking for your sisters. Let's find them and bring them back. He starts laughing at me. He said, my sisters, they don't have Facebook. They don't have smartphones. They live in places without internet, in villages in South Sudan. So I told him, listen, that's all we have. Even if they don't have, I'm sure that maybe one of your friends that you grew up with, maybe he's in university and he knows where they are. In the meantime, I go back to Israel. 3 months later, Chol finally finds Piat. And she's in the city Juba in South Sudan. And she has 3 children. And she's separated from her husband and she's working there in a cafe making about $1 a day. And I said, Chol, let's bring her out. And he said, you don't understand. You can't. It's too dangerous. If the family finds out, they could the least kill her. The most, they could take her for ransom and torture her and have us pay money and then pay money again. Wow. And never let her out. And then he tells me about their uncle that's in the military over there that could find them. That's Uncle Sudan. This guy used to come visit me in my nightmares every night.
Oh, really?
So these are pictures that we started getting from South Sudan. On the right is Fiat. On the left is Susie. That's also Fiat outside her home in South Sudan. That's Fiat as well. And I'm talking to them. I'm calling her. Fiat has a phone, not a smartphone, but has a phone. Susie lives in an area without a phone in Nembek. It's 2-day travel from Juba, but they're able to somehow be in contact with each other through different people that travel. And I'm talking to her about leaving, and the whole time I'm always worried about
the uncle.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of details, but you guys are gonna have to buy the book to find out the details. But let's fast forward really fast.
So there's a book on this. Remind me to ask about the book at the end of this.
Okay, well, the book's not out yet, so I'll just tell you now. It's written. It's being edited right now, and it'll take some time. But we'll get there. If you want, you could maybe jump back now just to see me. Are you able to do that?
You're on.
You see that? All right. We'll do that. We'll do this for a little bit. Okay, so basically, to fast forward really fast, is we try to figure out a bunch of different ways how we can bring them to Israel. We find out the Western Union doesn't really work in South Sudan. And we tried a bunch of other ways to pass money through, and the money disappeared. It never showed up. And then we're actually really scared. What happens if, somebody who makes $1 a day all of a sudden gets $500 to start buying passports, buying documents?
Yeah.
Somebody will find out they have the money. They don't know what to do with the money. She could be even more in danger.
Right.
And then I said, okay, I'll fly over there. And they said if anybody would see her with a Westerner, that would put her in danger. And till I found a way, I found an organization that helps bring children from mostly orphans or people who are not able to send their children to school. So he brings them from South Sudan to Uganda and Kenya and puts them up in schools over there, international schools.
Oh, okay.
So I found him, and I fly down to Uganda, in Tebe, and I meet him, and I see he's the real thing. And I see not just he's the real thing, but he's doing this not just for the money. He's doing this because he believes in making the world a better place and helping people.
Wow.
And I understood that's anything you want to do anywhere in the world, the first thing you have to do is find a guy. You got to find a guy. You find a guy, he'll hook you up.
You do anything.
And if he doesn't know how to do it, your guy will always have a guy. Remember that. All right?
Network.
If you find the wrong guy, you're going to be on the wrong track the whole way. So the trick is to find the right guy from the beginning. This is child transporting school we're doing here. So I find this guy, and he's the right guy. And we have to work out the details, how to bring them out, how to get their kids. We pick a date, December 25th, 2018. We're hoping that during Christmas, people won't realize we're kind of slipping by the border. And finally, we're waiting. And we're waiting by the border, and it's midnight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. Buses are coming through. People are getting off. We don't see them. Some people look like them. I think it's them. I run to them, and they are scared. They don't know who I am. We thought maybe they already showed up earlier. They've been traveling for about 18 hours now on different buses, and they lost reception once they crossed the border. Because my guy's guy brings them to the border. From the border on, they have to go by themselves. So I'm starting. There's all these people sleeping at the bus stop, just on the floor.
You kind of stand out, don't you? Do you stand out a little bit down there? You stand out amongst the crowd down there?
Well, we're going to see that I had to do some things to blend in. You'll see soon. But basically, I'm looking through like the sleeping people there. Maybe they're here, maybe they're sleeping. All of a sudden, about 2:30 in the morning, they come off the bus. And we see them. 1 second. Hold on. And if you could go to the picture now.
Oh.
You see it?
Yes, and the baby.
Yep. So this is one of the happiest moments in my life. They're here at the bus stop. This is on the right is Fiat. On the left is Susie, and Susie has her baby. But talk about mixed feelings. In a way, was happy because we did the impossible. But on the other hand, the kids aren't here. And I asked where are the kids. I thought maybe they're still on the bus. And they said that they weren't able to get the kids out. When they tried to take their kids, their husband suspected them of stealing their kids because the kids don't even live by them. They live by their husband's family, their uncles, their aunts, their grandmother. And they suspected them, and they had to run away without the kids, and they didn't want to tell us because they were afraid we would cancel the mission, which we might have really done. Now, it's interesting. You asked if I stuck out. So when I saw them, I came up to Susie. I tapped her on her shoulder. She jumped and was really scared. She started screaming. She thought I was a white ghost. She's never seen a white person before.
Especially with a cowboy hat.
Especially with a cowboy hat. So we brought them. Here we're, having food. We took cold drinks out. It's funny, like whenever we take the cold drinks out of the refrigerators, they would always wait for it to warm up because they're not used to having cold drinks.
Oh.
And give them like a brain freeze. This is the father. This is Fiat's husband.
Okay.
Now, just so you should understand the map. You see the map?
Yes. So you're down in
Uganda. We're coming from Juba.
Mm-hmm.
South Sudan, and we have to get to northern Ethiopia. Now, you would think you could go straight this way. Are you able to see my mouse?
Yes.
But this way is very dangerous. To go through northern Sudan into Ethiopia is very dangerous, so you have to kind of hook around Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia. So we go from Juba all the way down here to Kampala, a little south of Kampala. Then we go back to Kampala, and we cross over to Kenya. Once we cross over to Kenya, we go into Nairobi. From Nairobi, we go up to the border of Numaila by Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, all the way up to Addis, it's another 2 days. And from Addis Ababa, all the way to Gondar is another 18 hours. And here, finally, we arrived. And it was the most amazing sight to see where the mother reunites with her two daughters. Something that she never ever thought would happen. You could put me back on if you want. You could put my screen back on. There we go. I know I'm not such a pretty sight, but we'll have to deal with this for now. So yeah, imagine that feeling. Imagine that feeling of a mother.
After what? After 10 years?
After 10 years, not ever thinking. Now, I even have a video, but to see that video clip, you'll have to come to an actual live presentation.
Oh, wow.
But it's the most powerful thing you could ever imagine. The mother was crying, just saying, which is she was thanking God. She never thought she'd be able to see her daughters before.
Wow. But
I remember growing up.
This started with her falling on the ground, just crying and crying out to God because she thought he had abandoned her. And all of these things started with that cry out to God.
100%. And sometimes, there's different levels of crying. There's crying when you're hurt. There's crying when you really, really want something. And then there's the cry, which is such a hard cry, which is basically a give up cry. And it's so hard that it doesn't even come out. There's no cry. It's a silent cry. And that cry of a silent cry of basically giving up and giving yourself to God, kind of like Isaac going on the altar.
Yeah.
It's like giving yourself to God and saying, I can't do this anymore. Take me away. And that's complete submission.
Yes.
And I remember growing up always learning about bringing a person to God who's far away from God is like, imagine if a mother has not seen her child, never thought that she would see her again, and bringing her child to her. And here I was able to see it in real life.
Wow.
These two daughters coming back with their mother. And I remember coming back to Israel, being so proud. And I went to the head of Benjamin, Mr. Israel Gantz.
Mhm.
He's my boss.
This the
telling him this story.
The Benjamin.
The head of the Benjamin Regional Council.
Right.
Where I live. And he looks at me and he wasn't willing to celebrate. And I said, what's going on? You should be happy. We did this amazing thing. And he's helped me and made everything in the background happen through Israel and all the permits and everything. He connected me to the right people, made a lot of phone calls, and burnt a lot of connections to make this happen. And I'm like, you should be happy. We did this amazing thing. And I showed him the video of the daughters connecting to the mother. And he looks at me and he shakes his head. And I said, what? And he said, what about their children? We don't leave anyone behind. The mission is not accomplished until the children are out and everybody is here in Israel. I said, listen, the children is a little bit more complicated. There's international laws to take children out. He said, if they were your children, would you tell that to me? So I call up my guy, right? That's what you do, remember?
The guy.
Talk to your guy. And my guy says, I have an idea. Let's bring these kids to school. You know, if you get a phone call in South Sudan that your kids are able to get free school, that's like winning the lottery in South Sudan, especially if your kids are not in school. And these kids were not in school. So my guy calls up Fiat's husband, ex-husband, the father of the children, and he tells him, your kids won free school. You know, we have the organization, we bring a lot of kids to school, and your kids won free school. And the father's like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really great. But before I do anything, I have to go take advice from the local Dinka witch. And he goes to the local Dinka witch, and she does her thing, and she says, the mother of your children are trying to steal your kids. Don't send them. And that's what happened week after week. I'm not going to go through all the details. A lot of details happen. Again, you're going to have to, but just to kind of skim through as our time is flying by. Basically, a couple of weeks later, I called my guy again. I said, you have to try again. We have to make this happen. And I said, I'll give you $1,000, which is a lot of money in a country where,
Yes.
you know, the daily wage, $1 a day, if these children cross the border. So he says, you know what? I'll try. And he calls up the father again. And what he didn't know is that 2 minutes earlier, the father got a phone call from his mother, the grandmother, where the children were living, the 3 children. And she calls him up and said, your youngest girl, your 5-year-old girl, she died. Come back and bury her. What? How did she die? We don't know. She was playing outside. It was a very hot day, nice hot South Sudanese day. She fainted. We put her in her bed, and she never woke up. Come back and bury her. When my guy called him, he was sure it was his mother again calling, and that's why he answered, because he hasn't been answering the phone calls in the past couple of weeks. And he hears this voice saying, not knowing what he's saying, why let your children die in South Sudan when they could successfully live and get free education, free medical care somewhere else? And he said at that moment, even though the Dinka witch told him something, he said, at the end of the day, I'm Christian, and I believe in God. And if God wants to give my children success, who am I to tell them no?
Wow.
Now, it wasn't so simple. A couple of weeks passed. He kept on saying that he was supposed to meet My guy came, and my guy's guy brought him money for the bus. He would just take the money and disappear. And then he said, "Oh, I owe money. That's why I can't leave, because I got into a fight and I broke somebody's teeth." And he wanted $250, which is a crazy amount over there.
Right.
And I told my guy, I said, "How much is a child's life worth? Much more than that." And he said, "Yeah, but if we give him the money, he's just going to disappear," which he did. Another week till he came back and wanted more. Finally, Friday night, my guy called me. He says, "I have indication that they're going to cross the border tomorrow."
Wow.
Saturday morning, even though I'm Shomer Shabbat, I usually don't drive or even use my phone on Shabbat, but this is life and death. Saturday morning, I get in my car, drive to the airport, land again in Entebbe. If you could go to the screen here and share the screen again. You asked what I did to blend in. So the truth is, my guy told me I have to put on dreadlocks to blend in. Till today, I don't know if he was just telling it to me because he had a bet with somebody. Either way, I show up. Again, he was late. Finally, he came. I take the children. Now, when I take the children from my guy, he gives me their traveling documents. Now, I have 2 children now.
Right.
Right? This is their traveling document. Now, I look at it and I say, "Okay, this is for one. Where's the boy's traveling document? This is for the girl." And he tells me, "You don't see that it says down here plus 1 child?" I was like, I'm supposed to cross through international borders through a couple different countries with 2 children and 1 document that says plus 1 child. And he tells me, "Listen, when in Africa, you travel 2 children with 1 document." And I was like, "This is crazy."
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Listen, they were able to cross the border from South Sudan to Uganda with this." I said, "You have a point." And we got the father to sign on a paper saying that I'm able to take the children and bring them to wherever education we want.
Right.
We start with the same traveling. Right? Remember this? The same thing we did with the mothers.
Yeah.
Only right here in the middle of Kenya. 1 second. Here, I'll just show you this picture. This is me when I met the children. Now, actually, these children, I brought like candies and chocolate. They wouldn't touch it. Later on, I found out, you know why they wouldn't touch it?
Why?
So the Hanson and Gretel story reached South Sudan as well. And they were sure, they've never ever seen a white person in their life. And they were sure that I was a white witch and I wanted to fatten them up so I could eat them. But I didn't need candies because I had a smartphone. And that was much more interesting because they've never seen one before. You could tell by their faces how they're staring at it. Mm-hmm. And we load these buses. Now, these buses are not like any other buses that you've seen. And we start traveling. They're old buses. All the luggage are in the middle. You can barely breathe in them. Of course, there's no AC. It's really hot, really humid. And we're traveling 12, 18 hours at a time. Oh, wow. And we cross the border. We get into Kenya. I remember at the hotel, the girl, when we walked into the breakfast room, the girl on the right, that's Ayen, she sees this orange. She points to it like it's an ice cream sundae, like she's never seen something like that before. And I asked her, "You've never seen an orange?" She said, "I have. I've just never tasted one." Oh. And I peeled it for her. She tasted it a little bit and she spit it out. She didn't like the taste.
How old is she?
In this picture here, she is 10 years old. And the mother is about 22, 23.
Wow. And how old is the little boy?
7.
7.
In the picture, yeah. So that's us. And we actually, we're halfway through Kenya, this picture. And we call the mother. And she didn't even know that I have the kids. Some morning, her baby girl was dead. And I remember calling her and her face is down and she's crying. because she's still sad and crying about her baby girl. And all of a sudden she sees this picture. And that's her in the middle. Now, we decided to do a little shortcut because the boy was not feeling well. And we went into a little airport.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the problem here. As soon as we get into the airport, that one document with the +1 child didn't work anymore. And they stopped us and they arrested me for child trafficking. And they told me, oh yeah, international child trafficking.
Oh.
And they said, here in Kenya, it's 20 years and you have children, so that's 40 years minimum. And I said, okay, I want to speak to my lawyer. And they said, okay, you have 4 months to see your lawyer. That's how the law is here in Kenya. And situations did not look good.
Yeah, I don't think they have very nice prisons in Kenya.
Probably not. Let's just say, even with the dreadlocks, I probably would not blend in too well. And here, you could take off the sharing, the screen sharing. Now, situations here were very, very, very tough. And I realized that this is you know, as much as we tried, this is not looking well. We were there from 9 in the morning till late at night, and they were trying to figure out what to do with us, the technicals, how to take us away, where to put the kids, what to do with me. In the meantime, I text message all any Israel Africa connections that I know. And I say, if anybody knows anything, SOS, better speak now.
You need a guy.
I need a guy. Exactly. You passed the test right now. You got it. I need a guy. And my guy came. And maybe he wasn't wearing a cape, but it seemed like he's wearing a cape. It was a pastor, Pastor Dennis Nathumbi from Kenya. And Pastor Dennis shows up, and I see him already outside through the window. I see him, kind of hear him speaking on the other side, and he's coming and he's speaking as a politician with his Kenya pin and Kenya robe. And he's explaining like he's with us and he's one of us and we're working together. And he convinces them, for the safety of the children, that we shouldn't sleep in a prison cell, and we'll show up in the morning to immigrations. And in order to assure them that we will show up in the morning, he signs 1 million Kenya shillings on his personal name, that if we disappear. And he also gives him his ID, so he can't go anywhere. Now, when he takes us out, I come to him on the side and I say, Pastor Dennis, you don't know me. I've never met you before. You came to me through a friend in Israel. How could you do this? And he looks at me and he says, you are a Jew going to Judea. And God promised in the Bible, whoever blesses the Jews, they will be blessed. And you can't go wrong by doing right. And for me, this blew me right out of the water. Because this isn't just speaking, this isn't just preaching, this is doing.
Yes.
And to sign 1 million Kenya shillings on somebody you don't know. And the truth is, I even had the people were offering me these little planes to fly out the country.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reasons, we decided we're going to try to do it the right way, to do everything we can. Mm-hmm. So actually, we go here. Just you could 1 second go back to the sharing screen. Here, can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Here we're giving the kids food, and I made them use forks for the first times in their life. It's interesting. The word in Arabic for fork is malika. Malika also means king. Because only the kings would use forks. And you could see how happy they are using a fork. They felt like kings. And at night, when we brought them and took a shower, so all of a sudden I see that she washed her dress as well, because she learned over in South Sudan they had to pump water by hand. And if you have water, so you wash your clothes, because you don't know when you're going to wash your clothes, have water to wash your clothes next. So the next day, I decided to do a little fixer-upper for them. You can see over here, I brought them to a shoe store, and their first time ever buying new shoes. You can tell how excited they look. Here, they're all excited. Now look at that, little fixer-upper. You recognize that? And then the girl, Ayen, she looks at me, she points, and she tells me, Inta, Inta, which means in Arabic, you. She wanted me to do a fixer-upper as well. So I did a little fixer-upper myself.
Ooh.
Yep. And here, we could stop the sharing. You go out of the sharing screen. Basically, what happened is we decide after we do the fixer-upper, we go to the Israeli embassy. Now, I kind of maybe a little childish. Maybe I watched too many fairy tales. I kind of imagined we'd show up at the Israeli embassy, helicopter would come, rope ladder would come down, we jump on the rope ladder, climb up, back, to Israel, and then I would wire Dennis the $1 million Kenyan shillings. That's not what happened. They looked at us at the embassy, and they said, "This is serious stuff. This could be child trafficking. We can't have anything to do with this." That's when I started realizing that this is not going to be so easy to get out. We go back outside. Dennis was waiting for us outside. He says, "Listen, I got a guy." And he says the guy is in the South Sudanese embassy in Kenya. So we're on the way there, and I'm thinking to myself, whoa, if I'm not in a dark enough pit now to go from dark to dark, we go in there, it'll be over. If they feel that we're kidnapping their citizens, they're not going to let us out. And I text message my guy, David Haivry, the guy who connected me with Dennis, and I said, "Are you sure he's not going to sell me out?" And David wrote back to me. He said, "I am more than 100% sure. Dennis is a Christian, and he's a real Christian, and he loves the Jewish people. And for all the money in the world, he won't sell you out." And we show up to the South Sudanese embassy, and his guy very fast realizes that it's way above his payroll. And in comes the consul general, and he also looks at us and says, "This is not for me." They take us down the hallway into the South Sudanese ambassador's office. And we're sitting there with the ambassador, and he starts speaking to the children in Dinka. And Dinka, the only ones who speak Dinka are the Dinka tribe in South Sudan. And the ambassador is also Dinka. So he understands very fast what's going on. And he looks at me very angry, and he tells me straight out, "You tried to kidnap my children, my citizens. And by international law, you are now in South Sudan. First of all, these children will not leave here, as they're my responsibility. Second of all, you are arrested in the name of South Sudan."
Ooh.
I remember at that moment, everything went black. I couldn't see anything. I felt myself sinking down, and for me, it was checkmate. Checkmate, game over.
Wow.
And I remember telling God, I said, "God, if you don't want your children, these are your children, not mine." I remember saying to myself the verses from Isaiah, "I will tell to the north, let them go into the south, do not hold them back, for I will bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth." God, these are your children, not mine. If you don't want them, and I remember the feeling was more of an angry feeling, realizing that it's over. And I remember while I was feeling that feeling, all of a sudden I hear Pastor Dennis's voice speaking. And Pastor Dennis said, "Your Excellency." He much more understands how to speak to an ambassador than I did. Yeah. When we speak to our ambassadors, we say "achi," which means kind of like my brother. Pastor Dennis is a little bit more of a delegate. And he says, "Your Excellency, the reason why these children are able to go to Israel is because they are from Jewish Ethiopian roots." Now, for me, growing up in California, you kind of always hid the fact that you were Jewish because you didn't know who was anti-Semite, you'd rather not say it. So here, I hear in one sentence, also Israel and also Jewish, something that I refrained from saying. And I was like, Dennis, you don't know you're not supposed to, I'm thinking to myself, you don't know you're not supposed to say something like that? And I'm like, now, if I wasn't in trouble before, now he has another 2 reasons for me to be in trouble.
Sealed the fate.
Exactly. The ambassador looks very angry. He says, why are you telling this to me? You think I don't know? You think I don't know about the history of the Jewish Ethiopians that came through our land to go to Israel? There are many families of the Jewish descendants in my country. Why are you only taking these 2 children and not the other ones?
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. Took a deep breath. I was like, we could start with these 2, and after we'll move on to the other one. And then he said, in the 60s, when the Dinka tribe was fighting the Sudanese Arabs, we were fighting with bow and arrows because we had no guns. And no country would sell us guns. And there was one country that was willing to sell us guns, and that was Israel.
Wow.
And we will remember that for them. And he brings me over to his table, and he shows me on his table, he has a Bible. And he says, it is written here in the book about the lost tribes returning to their land. These children are from the lost tribes. And then he takes me to his bookshelf, and he shows me books. It was the book written by Shimon Peres. Not enough room for a small dream. And he starts telling me, what is the secret of Israel? How are they able to, in so short amount of time, with enemies all around them, to succeed so much? And he ends up setting us the red carpet and helping us come to Israel. Now we're running out of time. A lot more happens, but I think I don't know how much we could say from the story. Maybe we'll just jump ahead. We'll jump ahead.
We can't tell them everything because they have to have a reason to come to Israel and hear the rest of the story. So exactly. There's a lot more to this story.
A lot more. But just maybe to go through the last punchline, maybe the last punchline of the story. What happened is just really to get through the last punchline of the story. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
So what happened was basically we needed to get documents from South Sudan. Now, while I was in Kenya, I met a pastor, Pastor Fermo. And Pastor Fermo was telling me about the life in South Sudan. And I ended up taking out $200, and I gave him a donation, right, for his people in South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, when I was in Ethiopia, and I was trying to get the documents, and the father wasn't answering, and I basically gave up. I remember as we were talking about giving up, I gave up again.
Mm-hmm.
And then last second, I remembered God never gave up on me. So I have to try one more thing. But what's that one more thing? What could I try, Steve? Let's see if you were listening to anything I was saying in the past hour. You need me to do something. What do you look for?
You need the guy. You sound
need
like
the
guy.
Exactly. You're getting 100 here. And I call up Pastor Fermo. And I say, Pastor Fermo, could you help us get these signed documents? And Pastor Fermo says, actually, I know a guy. And he knows a guy from the Minister of Exterior Affairs, and he gets all the signed documents. And we needed another $200 for the visa, and I had no way to wire him the money. And he said, remember you gave me that $200 donation? And he takes those $200 and he puts it out for the visa fares.
Wow.
And then I say, Pastor Fermo, is there anything I could give to you? Anything to, you've helped us so much. And he said, I want one thing. He said, I want you to bless me in the name of the God of Israel and your forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's all he wanted. And these here are the documents that you could see how many signatures we ended up getting on them. This is the Republic of South Sudan that he got. Over here is from the Embassy of South Sudan. This is from the Ethiopian immigrations. This is a round stamp from the embassy because they first needed the square, and then they said it's not enough, and I had to go back and get the round. And this is finally the stamp of Israel and the lace and the wax stamp from Israel. So we finally got the visas of the children. And what happened is here, now we could go back to see me a little bit. Then we'll go back afterward. And this is just for the punchline because we're really running out of time here. Finally, we have the children. We're in Ethiopia. We have the mother, Fiat. If you'd ask what happened to Susie, that's a whole other story. Because Susie ended up disappearing, and then we found her, and she was with her children, but that's a whole other story. And right before we go to the airport, I look at the documents, and I notice that if we weren't in trouble before, we're in the biggest trouble right now. Because the documents of the children and the mother don't match. At all. Nothing, not even one name. The mother is a completely different name. The mother's father is a different name. The place of birth is a different name. The date of birth is everything is different. What happened is the relatives in Israel maybe didn't wanted to hide the fact that she was born in Sudan, so they gave her Ethiopian identity. The children's identity was from the internal affairs in South Sudan. So I called up my guy. Remember, that's what you do? You call up the guy. And my guy in Israel says, whatever you do, do not show up to the Ethiopian airport with the mother and the children together. Because this is classic child trafficking. That's what happens when you're trying to take children that aren't yours. The documents don't match. And you're just going to be stuck for a long, long time. And even Israel won't be able to help you until you work it out. And I had to figure out what to do. And then we decided that our goal is to help the children. Now, the mother, she could come to Israel by herself, as long as she's not with the children. And that's what happened. We come to the airport. I give the mother the documents, and I say, Pia, go. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, remember, we were in Ethiopia together, and you saw them baking the matzahs. The matzahs is the thin, fast, dry bread for Passover. And you asked me what that was? And I told you that is when the Jewish people left Egypt. They waited and waited, and things kept on happening. There were plagues, and they never believed that they would leave. And Moses said, no, you will go. And Pharaoh made it even harder for the Jewish people.
Yes.
And the Jewish people completely lost hope. But when the time came, there wasn't even time for the bread to rise. And I looked at her and I said, now is your time. You are leaving Egypt, and today you will land in Israel. My friend will wait for you at the airport. It is today, not tomorrow. Middle of this day. And she looks at me, and she looks at her children, and she says, and what about the children? And I said, Pia, I don't know. We might come today. We might come tomorrow. We might come in a week. You have to trust me on this one. We've gotten so far. I won't leave without the children. And she looked at me and said, I don't understand what you're doing, but I've never gotten this far, so I'm going to have to trust you. She calls me 45 minutes later, and she says, أنا في باب 32 وأنا يستنى لفوق لطائرة لماشين لإسرائيل. I'm at gate 32, and I'm waiting to go up to the plane towards Israel. And I said, if you haven't prayed till now, start praying now. And she said, I'm going to pray that the God shall help us. I take the two children by their hand. I go into the airport. We go through the ticketing. There's a whole story over there. The printer didn't work. I have to get another paper. We go through the security. And now I'm standing in front of passport control. Passport control, their job is to make sure that people like me don't take out little kids that don't belong to them.
Right.
And one of the reasons why my guy said, don't even try anything in Ethiopia, he says, because now Ethiopia is trying to get loans from the World Bank. And to get loans, they have to show that they're cracking down on child trafficking, and they're arresting people that are trying to do it. And I'm standing there in front of this toll with passport control. And I feel like it was the day of judgment, Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm standing before God, just like the story of Eob. And you have the angels on the right and the angels on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm either going to be written in the book of go or the book of no go. And I kind of stand there, and with our passports, I kind of put them on the table, you know, kind of whistling, just like it's a regular day,
Right.
without any plan. Because what could I plan? What could I say? I was kind of just hoping, kind of like, these are not the droids you were looking for, type thing to happen. That's all I had, just to kind of walk through, and hopefully God will split the sea.
In that door.
And I put the passports on, and he takes them, he looks at them, and all of a sudden he stands up with suspicion, looking at the kids. And he tells me, "Are these your children?" And I remember the whole world came to a froze. It was over. It was a no-go. And all of a sudden, I felt myself saying, and I held my suit, my blue suit, and on my blue suit, there was a little Israeli flag pin. And I held the pin, and I said, "These are Israel's children, and they sent me here to bring them home."
Oh, wow.
The official sat back down, and he shook his head like this, and he said, "What is this great nation that sends people around the whole world to bring their kids home? What can I do to be part of this nation?" As I hear the stamps on the passport.
Bless you.
Now, if you go to the screen share, see it? This is us at the airport, where I tap on the mother's shoulder, and she picks her head up and she sees I'm with her 2 children right before we board the plane. This is landing in Israel. And now what's so special about this picture here, when we landed in Israel, is the welcome home sign. Because I explained to her what it says here, and I said, this says welcome home, because this is your home. As part of the Jewish people, you are a Jew with Jewish descendants. This is your home, because Israel is a home to all Jews, no matter what background, no matter what color. It doesn't matter. We're one family. And that's why this is a person from the Israel government welcoming us as the welcome home and Olim. Olim means to come up. Over here, she's becoming an Israeli citizen at the airport.
At the airport.
At the spot. Yep, this is at the airport. She's making aliyah, becoming an Israeli citizen. This is already. These are pictures. I was at my office. This is later on. They came right to my house, and they were living in my home. I'm at my office, and my children are sending me these pictures. They're teaching Ayen what nail polish is. They're teaching him what a bicycle is. And this is my whole family picture. And I remember being at the office, getting these pictures. We could go back to me if you want. And I'm getting the pictures of them, and they're looking happy. The day is over already, and everybody left the office. And I remember right before I left, I picked a phone up, and I called Very familiar number. My guy in Uganda. And I said, Guy, I will give you $1,000 if Susie, which is the younger sister, and her children cross the border. That story will definitely have to be for another time.
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. AY, that's incredible because, what we're doing with the nation's Ninth of Av is calling Christians everywhere to come alongside the Jewish people and fast and pray and restore the relationship and truly yearn for God to reveal himself once again to all nations. We're mourning over the destruction of God's house where his glory dwelled. And
so just because
us coming together, what does that mean? What is your take on what the future holds?
So just because you said that, I have to just touch a teeny bit on the next story. All right. If you go into the sharing screen, can you do that? Do you see the screen?
Yes.
So we're not going to say the story, but just in one word, that's Susie. That's two of her kids. There's also the baby. Pastor Firmo helped us get her out of Ethiopia, get her out of South Sudan without going to all the details. In Ethiopia, she got into a lot of trouble. And I talked to, because you talked to Christians from around the world. So I talked to a bishop, Bishop Malungi from Kenya, and he connected me to another pastor in Ethiopia. These are all Christian pastors, Pastor Emmanuel. And he put his neck out and went and did many things that we can't say here on line and recorded. But because of him, again, never met him, but because he says, I want to help the Jews come to Judea, about 42 days after she left South Sudan, we landed here in Israel.
Oh, wow.
And I just had to say that without going into all the details. You could take off the share screen. To answer your question, when Jews and Christians from around the world come together and work together, even reality can't stop us. Even reality can't stop us. Now, as you said, the morning of the destruction of the temple, the building of the temple symbolizes world peace, symbolizes redemption, it symbolizes rebuilding, coming together. Right now, in reality, it doesn't seem like that could happen. But just as I said, when Jews and Christians come together from around the world and work together, not even reality can stop them. And that's the blessing that I want to give to you, and I want to give to everybody that's listening to this. That we need to come together, hold us together, combine power, combine strength. Because as you know, 1 and 1 is not 2, it's a lot more.
Yes. I want to thank you, AY. This has been incredible. I can't wait to hear the rest of the story. So
thank you, Steve.
You know what? Next year, we're going to be doing a tour on the mountains of Judea and Samaria. And we're going to go hook up with AY, and you're going to hear the rest of the story. Because the truth is, this is an ongoing story. This relationship is restoring. We're just at the very beginning. Because this is God's desire that we will walk together. And I'm just honored to be able to come alongside and walk with you. Walk with you, AY. It's just such a blessing. I can't wait to see you again.
Thank you. Amen.
So,
in person on the mountains of Judea and Samaria.
Shalom, shalom, my friend.
Shalom, shalom. God bless you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about the nation's 9th of Av and how you can be part of the conversation, visit us at 9-av.com.